Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kate. I'm a registered psychotherapist in Toronto, Ontario. And today I am kicking off a series of videos that I've wanted to do for a really long time. In addition to being a psychotherapist, I'm also a huge Disney nerd, for lack of a better word. And so today I'm kicking off a new series that I've wanted to do for a really long time, and it's about the exploration of therapy themes that come through Disney movies. Disney has really changed over the years, and even though there were some subtle themes and references towards therapy topics in older videos, the videos of today are really tackling some difficult topics, some things that are really front and center in today's society. And I'm excited to sort of dive in with a nitty-gritty lens and figure out what resonates with me. I'm also really excited to hear from you. If there's anything that you agree with that I say, that you absolutely don't agree with, things that I maybe didn't even notice in any of these videos, leave some comments below and I'd love to get some discussions going. Today we're going to be kicking it off with my favorite princess movie. It took over the spot of Beauty and the Beast, which was my favorite princess movie growing up, and has now just become one of my absolute favorite movies of all time. If you haven't guessed it by the subtle theming on my shirt, we're talking about Moana. Now, firstly, I want to note, this is an older movie. I think it came out in 2015 or 2016, so I'm hoping that you've seen it by now. If you haven't, you might want to pause here, go watch the movie, and come back to it in 2 hours because there will be spoilers in this video. One of my absolute favorite things about Moana as a princess movie in general is the female representation and the female empowerment. I think this is a really rare Disney princess movie because there is absolutely no love interest for Moana. And it's just about a young hero who is going on a journey to discover parts of herself and to change things about the world. And I don't think we get a lot of that in today's movies. So that's one aspect that is maybe not necessarily a therapy theme, although often feminism does come into therapy sessions. But it's just one of those things that makes this movie really unique in my eyes. One of the really big overarching themes of the whole movie is an underlying theme of trauma. It doesn't feel so heavy when it's accessed through a cartoon and through some lighthearted moments and songs, but there's a lot of trauma in Moana. Firstly, there's generational trauma. Moana's village is a collectivist village, and they are bonded together by helping each other out. The entire village has shared in this experience of losing loved ones at sea, and it's created this rule, a rule that keeps them safe, but also keeps them very sheltered, in that they are no longer voyagers, they are no longer allowed to leave the island because the island gives us what we need. Because of this rule, they're actually denying an inherent part of what their cultural identity was, which was voyaging. And Moana is the one person in this village who seems to be still connected to that theme of voyaging. And so now she's in a really complex position. Does she listen to her heart? Does she take on this journey? Does she go out and voyage and do something that is against what the collectivist culture stands for? And not only the culture, but also her father, who happens to be the chief of the entire village. It's a really difficult position for Moana to be in because she has to choose between herself as an individual and her people as the future leader. And in a collectivist culture, the idea is that the needs of the group outweigh the needs of the individual. So Moana's in a very precarious spot right from the start of the movie. Another place where we see trauma in this movie is through Te Fiti, but we're going to dive into her a little bit later on. For now, let's start with Moana, since she's our protagonist, she's the main character in this movie, and she has a lot to teach us. So there's a big reason why Moana is my favorite movie. It's all about, in my eyes, Moana's journey to find her authentic self. And this is one of my favorite topics to explore in my therapy sessions. I love working on self-worth. I love working on values. I love working on all of these pieces that lead you to find your most authentic version of yourself so that you can live a truly fulfilling life. And to me, that's exactly what Moana's journey was in this film. She struggles with the idea of the ocean that calls to her, and she can feel it in her bones. But then there's this other side of her that wants to be part of her village, that feels compelled to, give up everything that she dreams in her heart and in her head and in her soul, because she knows that through all the teachings she's learned from her dad, Chief Tui, that the right thing to do is to take her place as the new leader of this tribe. So to me, it's really sort of special when Moana takes that advice from Grandma Tala, who's there on her deathbeds, telling her, encouraging her to go off and take this journey, to make this discovery about herself, to fix the entire world. Pressure on her shoulders. One of the things that I love most about Moana's journey is that it wasn't a straightforward path. Just like our own journeys in life, we don't always know if we're making the right decision. We don't always feel like we are tapping into this incredible force that we have within us, because in the middle of our journey, there's usually a struggle. In Moana's case, she faces incredible impostor syndrome. There's that part where Maui leaves, where she's all alone in the middle of the ocean, and she's looking at this heart in her hand, and she's struggling. She's wondering why the ocean chose her. She's pleading with the ocean, take it back. I can't do this. It's not my journey. And she almost gives up on herself. And then there's a really magical moment. It's when the spirit of Grandma Tala comes back and she sits with Moana and she says to her, you know what? It's okay. And I'm really sorry that I put this pressure on you to try and complete this task. And whether you complete it or you don't, I love you and I respect you. And I am so proud of you regardless. And that's such a magical moment, because that also shows us that our support systems love us no matter what. No one is out there keeping score. No one is making sure that you've achieved all of your dreams and goals. And if you don't, that's a reason for them to withhold their love and support for you. No, the people who support us through thick and thin. And it's really important. And it's through that conversation with Grandma Tala where then we end up in this really beautiful song, and Grandma Tala asks Moana, who are you? And Moana just comes out with this whole beautiful song. And she says, I'm the daughter of the village chief. I'm descended from voyagers. And she inherently understands who she is. She has figured out her authentic self. And it's in that moment where she realizes she can do this. And it's up to her to do this. And it's her destiny to do this. And that gives her so much strength. And now she's operating from that place of authenticity. She knows who she is. She knows she's fully capable. And whether she fails or she doesn't, whether she succeeds, she's gonna do this. And that's so powerful. as a bit of an aside, I think there's a really nice women supporting women vibe in this movie too. We see it definitely with Grandma Tala and Moana, but also with Moana's mom, Sina. There's that scene at the beginning of the movie where Moana is getting ready to go on her journey. She's packing up some fruit and vegetables and some sustenance to take along with her. And Sina sees this. And we kind of know that if it was Chief Tui who had seen this, he would have probably like locked her up somewhere and forbade. He would have stopped her from taking this journey. But Moana's mom sees that this is something that is so important to her daughter, and she helps her. She encourages her. She gives her some more fruit. She helps her along her path. And that's a really special and very subtle moment. If you blink, you miss it. But if you're paying attention, it's a really sweet moment between mother and daughter where her mother just encourages her to find her authentic self. The next major character that we're going to discuss is one of my favorites of all time, and that is Maui. Maui is this larger than life demigod with silky curly hair. Now, what we know of Maui from the beginning of the movie is what Grandma Tala has told Moana, which is that there is this demigod shapeshifter who has stolen the heart of Te Fiti. And so we think that he's a bad guy. Why would anyone choose to steal the heart from Te Fiti? That just doesn't make sense. And so Grandma Tala is encouraging Moana to go off and find Maui and return the heart. And Moana is wholeheartedly leaning into this narrative. Then the ocean brings her to Maui's island. And then she has a conversation with Maui. And Maui is this big, arrogant guy who, thinks that the whole world should be saying thank you to him for all of the wonderful things he does. We get one of the most brilliant songs in the movie at this point. Moana finds herself on the boat with Maui, and they are an unlikely pair, and they have to complete this journey together. Moana is doing this wholeheartedly. Maui is doing this very reluctantly. We see blow darts. We see the ocean slapping characters right back on the boat. Everything that is done because the ocean is a sentient being and knows that this is a task that just needs to be completed by these two together. So as the movie progresses, Moana starts getting a little bit curious about Maui. She asks him, "Hey, how do you get your tattoos?" And he replies a little bit flippantly. He's like, "Man's discovery of Nunya. What's Nunya? Nunya business." So through that dialogue, eventually Maui opens up just a little bit to Moana. And now here's one of Moana's biggest superpowers, is her empathy. And in that dialogue, Moana says to Maui something that's really insightful. She recognizes he did everything for them meaning humans, so that they would love him. Because Maui's backstory is that he was born to humans who threw him away, and it was the gods who saved him and gave him his powers and his strengths. So Maui has spent so much of his life trying to do everything for humans who tossed him out like he was nothing. And he's constantly looking for approval. He's constantly trying to do more for them, and it was never enough for them. They always wanted more. They never thanked him. And so it's not surprising that he's taken on this hard shell and he's distrustful of humans. But what Moana's superpower is her empathy. She's able to see Maui for who he is. She's able to recognize all that he's done, and that all he was looking for was maybe just a little thank you. And it's that moment that allows Maui to slowly learn how to trust again. Another really important thing to note, though, is that trust isn't built through one moment. trust is an ongoing thing. And that's something that we talk about a lot in therapy. It's not just one moment that is suddenly going to make you trust or distrust something. It's a buildup usually. And so we have this really powerful moment of trust, but then a little bit later in the movie, Moana gets so excited that she's almost there. She's almost at Te Fiti, and she thinks that we can beat Te Kā. And she doesn't really listen to Maui when he's like, hey, we're not ready for this yet. And she pushes forward and she's like, let's do this. And Maui's hook gets a crack and he then gives up. He's like, you betrayed my trust. We were in this together and you did something singularly and selfishly to advance your goal, but you didn't think of me or how I play into this whole thing. And that's a really important thing to note, is that trust isn't just one moment. It's made up of several moments over the course of a lifetime. You don't instantly gain trust with another person. And sometimes, especially when you're feeling really wounded and you've been carrying around all of this weight from something that happened previously, it can be just one moment that rocks that whole thing for you. And so Maui goes off. And then we get that moment where Moana faces her own impostor syndrome and she's just like, why did you choose me? I can't do this. I'm not capable. But then we eventually get to the point where Moana has found her authentic self. Maui from somewhere notices this and he comes in and he helps, and they once again trust each other and are able to work together to reach their ultimate goal. The last character that I really want to dive into is Te Fiti / Te Kā. So Te Fiti is the goddess of creation. She is what spreads lush greenery and makes the fish thrive, and everything is beautiful in the surrounding Polynesian landscape because of Te Fiti. Now what happens is Maui steals the heart of Te Fiti. That causes Te Fiti to turn into Te Kā. Te Kā is also a goddess. She's a goddess of death and destruction. And this is also necessary in the world. Like, we do need things to die. We need things to fall apart. But the way that I see it is Te Kā is the mask that Te Fiti is wearing. And she's wearing this mask as a response to the trauma that Maui has inflicted on her by stealing her heart. Through Te Kā, Te Fiti becomes the darkest version of herself. She's someone that even she doesn't recognize anymore. And that's a really sort of overpowering feeling when you deal with trauma a lot of the times. If you're going through trauma, if you've lived through trauma, a lot of times the response that you'll have is not recognizing the version of yourself that you are. You remember a previous version of yourself and you see this version of yourself and it doesn't seem to align. So when Moana is finally in the position where she can confront this lava monster, she sees Maui fighting out there, she sees the lava monster, she looks at the heart in her hand, and then she sees the spiral on Te Kā. And by the way, I think that's called a koru in Polynesian culture. So she sees the spiral that matches. So the heart is in her hand, the spiral is on the lava monster, and she holds up the heart and it casts this green glowing light. And at that point, Te Kā is just about to deliver the final blow to Maui or something, but her attention is diverted and she sees it. And Moana says, let her come to me. And the ocean parts way and she crawls dramatically. Te Kā crawls dramatically across the ocean to meet with Moana. And once again, Moana bursts into a very beautiful song and she sees her. And again, it's Moana's empathy and her ability to see beyond what is presented to her and see what's at the core of a person. And that's Moana's real strength, I think. But as Moana is singing this beautiful song, Te Kā is able to recognize herself again. And it's the fact that Moana recognized her that allows her to see herself. And that's really super important to indicate what the support of people and loved ones around you can do when you are going through trauma. They still know who you are. They still see you for who you are, even if you don't see that version of yourself. And that's so important. So because Te Fiti recognizes that Moana can see her, this then leads to a feeling of trust between the two of them. And she leans forward and Moana touches her and she restores the heart. And suddenly we see Te Kā shed all of the lava and ash and start developing all of this lush greenery, and she transforms and she's herself again. That is the authentic version of Te Fiti, who had gone away, who she had lost sight of. And it took Moana and also Maui to bring that version of Te Fiti back. I think that's a really powerful message for anyone who has gone through trauma, is to recognize that you are not defined by your darkest hour. You are more than what has been taken from you. And it is possible to get back to that version of who you want to be, who you see yourself as, who your authentic self is. And we lose sight of that a lot. And it's through a movie like Moana where we're able to symbolically see how this could translate into real life. The other really random thing that I want to highlight, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with therapy, but the brilliance of the writers. I just really love how they intentionally placed certain moments after other moments. And the one that stands out in my mind is right after Grandma Tala dies and Moana is embarking on her journey. We suddenly, I don't know about you guys, but when I watch that scene, no matter how many times I've seen it, I am shedding tears like crazy. It is one of the most emotional scenes ever for me, ever in the history of film. But then directly after that scene, we have Hei on the boat, and he looks around at the vast ocean around him, and he's just like, ah, and he loses his mind. And that scene makes me cackle with laughter every single time. I absolutely love that scene, and I love the juxtaposition between like intense sadness to just intense laughter. I am always laugh crying by the end of those moments. So we're gonna leave it there for now, and I would love to hear from you. Is there anything that you picked up on that I didn't see in this movie? Is there anything that I said that really resonated with you? I'd love to jump into a discussion. This is probably one of my favorite topics, so leave me some comments and let's talk about Moana. Catch you on the next one. Bye.